Ever had one of those flights where you think it'll be just another average journey? You know, the usual, settle into your seat, maybe grab a drink, tune out the world for a bit, and get some work done. But then, out of nowhere, you find yourself right in the middle of a confrontation that turns the whole plane into a battleground. That's exactly what happened to me. I was Charlotte Harper, the head of Pacific Sky Airlines, but that day, I was just another traveler in business class, hoping to finish up some paperwork before an important meeting. I stepped into the cabin, put down my bag, and immediately felt the eyes on me. It wasn't because they recognized me, it was because of the man sitting next to me. He had somehow taken over the 2 seats beside him, as though the entire row was his personal space. He made sure to spread his jacket, his laptop, and even his briefcase across both seats like they were extensions of his kingdom. Before I could even sit down, he threw a coat over the seat next to him, blocking my spot. "I need all this space," he muttered in a tone that made it clear he wasn't open to negotiation. I held up my boarding pass, calm but firm, and told him, "This is my seat." He barely looked at me, barely glanced at the pass, and just grunted, "You're wrong. People like me belong here, not you." At that moment, I felt the shift in the air. It was like the whole cabin had frozen. The silence was thick, and the phones started coming out. No one stepped in, but you could tell everyone was bracing for something to happen. This wasn't about a seat anymore. It was about who gets to claim their space, who gets respect, who gets to be left in peace. I spoke again, staying calm. "This is my seat." He folded his arms, dismissively, still refusing to acknowledge me. "You don't belong here," he sneered. Those words, I knew them all too well. Growing up in a tough neighborhood in Chicago, I'd fought my whole life to be respected, to prove that I belonged wherever I set my mind. But this guy, let's just call him Gregory Ford, was a classic example of the type who thought power meant no one could challenge him. A top executive at a global finance firm, used to giving orders, used to never being questioned. People like him had no time for someone who stood their ground, especially not someone like me. I wasn't about to back down. "Mr. Ford," I said, making sure he knew I wasn't intimidated. "I've asked you politely to vacate my seat. Show some respect, and let's keep things equal. That's all I'm asking." He let out a loud, mocking laugh that made the entire cabin tense. "Respect? Do you even know what that word means, Ms. Harper?" At this point, I could feel the eyes of the cabin on us. Some people shifted in their seats, others stared blankly, trying to pretend they weren't involved. But now, it wasn't just my problem. Everyone was watching. Ford had turned a quiet flight into his personal stage, a performance about dominance and privilege. But he didn't know who he was messing with. I wasn't just some passenger, I was the CEO of this airline. And for now, I wasn't going to use my position. Not yet. The flight attendant, Sarah, stepped in. She was gentle but direct, asking Ford to respect the seating arrangements. His response? He claimed he had a medical condition and refused to move. Sarah gave me a glance, clearly frustrated, her patience wearing thin. You could feel the tension building, the air crackling like it was about to snap. Then, from across the aisle, someone spoke up. "Wait a second, isn't that Charlotte Harper, CEO of Pacific Sky Airlines?" Just like that, the whole room turned their attention to me. Even Ford's smug expression wavered for a split second, but he quickly tried to brush it off. "I don't care who you are," he snapped. "You won't make me move." Ever see someone realize in real time that their usual tactics aren't working? That's exactly what happened in that moment. Instead of getting louder, I simply smiled, leaned back, and calmly replied, "I guess we'll see how this plays out." In that moment, the entire cabin seemed to feel a subtle shift. A moment where standing your ground spoke louder than any argument could. That's when I made my move, quiet, unnoticed by most. I pulled out my phone and quickly sent a discreet message to my team. Operation Silent Wing was in motion. Within seconds, the Wi-Fi in Gregory's corner of the plane went out. His phone, which he clearly relied on for everything, went dead. No calls, no messages, no backup. You could see the confusion and frustration creeping across his face, but I stayed still, my hands calmly folded. I didn't flinch. The crew exchanged knowing looks. We all understood what was happening. Gregory, on the other hand, tried everything he could. He fidgeted with his phone, shot me glares, and made a scene, showing just how inconvenienced he felt. But the more he fumed, the more ridiculous he looked to the rest of us. A few minutes passed, and unable to hold his temper any longer, he sprang up, shouting, "I won off this plane, right now." The whole cabin tensed in surprise, and the senior flight attendant, John, stepped in, blocking his path. He stood firm. "Sir, please sit down. We are currently under a movement restriction," John said. Gregory threatened legal action. He tried the classic, "Do you know who I am?" routine. But no one in the cabin was impressed. That's when something truly unexpected happened. A woman, probably in her 50s, someone I'd never seen before, stood up and called him out. "You're the one taking up 2 seats and being rude. You're the problem here." It was in that moment that Gregory realized he wasn't just dealing with me. He was up against the entire cabin. The crowd had turned on him. His last-ditch efforts to shift the blame fell flat. The woman continued, "Instead of apologizing and giving her the seat she's entitled to, you just kept getting worse." Nods of agreement spread through the cabin like wildfire. Gregory, pale and visibly shaken, realized he was isolated. The atmosphere in the plane had shifted in a way that probably felt colder than the air conditioning ever could. Then, Martin, our senior VP of operations, appeared. Calm, collected, and authoritative, he locked eyes with Gregory and said, "Return to your assigned seat now, or we will take further action." Gregory hesitated, but deep down he knew the game was up. His face flushed with humiliation as he slunk back to his seat, the entire cabin watching. And that's when the floodgates opened. Whispers started, phones were raised, and by the time we landed, the story was already circulating online. #RespectCharlotte and Sky Venture Justice began trending. Gregory's face became the symbol of arrogance and entitlement gone wrong. News outlets picked up the story. His business associates pulled away, and the very board he once ruled with an iron fist booted him out. Meanwhile, I returned to our headquarters and set in motion a series of transformative changes. We launched mandatory diversity and respect training, created a council to ensure fair treatment at all levels, and made sure Sky Venture was an example for the industry on real change. As for Gregory, despite his money and connections, he was left out in the cold. Law firms refused his case, friends disappeared, and his once gilded mansion was filled with echoes of regret, no longer laughter. He learned the hard way that money and power mean nothing without the respect of others, and that the true cost of arrogance is losing the very dignity you thought you were above. I kept that boarding pass for Seat 1B on my desk as a reminder, every day is a new opportunity to do the right thing, even if it means standing alone. In a world where power often speaks louder than respect, moments like these remind us of the true value of standing firm, not out of arrogance, but out of conviction. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that success is about what you can get away with, how much you can assert your dominance, or who you can push around. But what happens when those who are used to controlling the narrative meet someone who refuses to be pushed aside? What happens when the world no longer tolerates the arrogance of privilege, and when power is finally met with accountability? The moment on that plane wasn't just about a seat or a confrontation, it was a turning point. A reminder that every individual, no matter their position or title, deserves the basic respect that allows them to exist in peace and dignity. It's not about making a spectacle of someone who's in the wrong. It's about using quiet strength to make a stand and, in doing so, reminding everyone else that they too have the power to do the same. In that space, amidst the tension and the cameras rolling, it became clear to me that real power isn't about making the biggest noise or having the loudest voice. It's about knowing when to stay silent, when to be calm, and when to take the necessary steps to correct a wrong, no matter how small or large. The quiet confidence to handle a situation with dignity and grace can sometimes speak louder than any confrontation ever could. But in the same breath, we also have to remember that speaking up, taking action, and showing the world that injustice won't go unchecked is just as important. When it comes down to it, this wasn't just about me defending my seat or proving a point. It was about showing that the people around us, those who have been conditioned to stay quiet, to avoid confrontation, can find their voice too. It was about demonstrating that standing up for yourself isn't always about raising your voice or making a scene. Sometimes it's simply about setting the boundaries that others try to cross and doing so in a way that leaves no room for argument. What happened next wasn't just the end of a confrontation, it was the beginning of a broader movement. One that forced people to re-examine how power is used and abused. It highlighted that respect, in its most honest form, cannot be bought or demanded. It must be earned, shown, and maintained through actions, not words. The ripple effect of that moment extended far beyond the confines of that plane. It sparked conversations, forced businesses to rethink their internal cultures, and pushed even those in power to reconsider their approach to leadership and accountability. But let's not forget, this is just the beginning. The truth is, we all have moments in our lives where we're faced with choices. Moments where standing up for what's right might cost us something, but also moments where doing the right thing could change everything. It might not always be easy, and the road might be long. But if we all took a moment to consider how we show up in the world, to think about how we treat others, to recognize that we all have a responsibility to one another, imagine the shift we could create. So, I challenge you, when faced with your own moments of injustice, big or small, how will you respond? Will you take the quiet, confident path that puts you in control, or will you let others dictate your space, your value, and your dignity? It's a question worth asking, and it's one we should all answer every single day.